Welcome to State of Mind. This is Julian Royce. Today's episode is awesome. It's more musical, more creative, maybe a little more fun than some of the more recent episodes have been. I'm sure they're all fun in their own way. And it has some salty language, so if that's not your thing, maybe don't listen or watch this one. And before we get into it, a quick word from our sponsors.
Has modern life got you feeling down? Is it impossible for you to get out of bed in the morning because of an unshakable feeling of existential dread? Do you find yourself constantly wondering what the point of all this bullshit is? Then maybe it's time to talk to your doctor about Fuck It All. Fuck It All, America's most prescribed brand of reality-altering medication, can help you enjoy a more satisfying life experience. Are you ready to feel really fucking good? Then talk to your doctor today about Fuck It All. Fuck It All is not meant for everybody. Side effects may include dizziness, dry mouth, changes in depth perception, an enhanced sense of humor,
an overwhelming connection with nature, the feeling of being blasted through 12 dimensions simultaneously, face melting, conversations with extraterrestrial beings, indescribable visions of God, experiencing ego death, and reliving past or future lives. If you find yourself trapped outside the three-dimensional world, you took too much.
As you could tell, that was a little bit of a joke, a little bit tongue-in-cheek. That was created by Tyler Cates in Atlanta, Georgia, who created, with a little bit of input from me, the introduction song to this podcast. So thank you, Tyler, for that. I thought it was hilarious. Hopefully it didn't cause too much offense. So today I'm speaking with Derek Demuth. Derek is a musician. He's an incredible classically trained guitar player. He lives here in Colorado, and I was really happy to get to have him on the podcast. So like I said, this episode is a little bit different. It's not so much focused on therapy, but we do touch on a lot of really cool topics, including how the pandemic has affected musicians, climate change, technology, electronic music and live musicians, and YouTube censorship. So Derek created an amazing cover of Hotel California, which is quite distinct, very different from the classic original, yet it was banned from YouTube. The YouTube censors took it down. So we actually include that here in the podcast. The music video is beautiful, has a lot of artistic elements and symbolism we discuss. And then at the very end of this episode, if you're watching on YouTube, you can watch the full video there. So I want to give you a little clip of another music video from Derek so you can see what he's about. This song is called Dragon's Dream. So you just heard, or if you're watching on YouTube, saw the music video, or a clip of the music video for Dragon's Dream. You can see that Derek has this really unique style of percussive acoustic playing that he's developed. It was really cool to have him come here and share some of that with us and explain how he learned that and developed that and what that's all about. Without further ado, I bring you the great, powerful Derek Demuth. Today with Derek Demuth. Derek, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is great. So I got guitar lessons from you like years ago.
Yes, I think that's how we sort of initially met, right?
Yeah, and also Ableton,
yes,
which is a music program. And so it's cool that we've stayed in touch, and I think that was 2015, honestly, so it's been a while.
Years ago now.
Yeah.
It's incredible how time flies.
And I thought about you for the podcast because I love some of the videos you've been putting out.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to hear that.
They're great. They're creative. You usually get dressed up, and I'll include some clips for people to see. But do you want to share with us a little bit about have you always been playing music? Like, how did you come to devote yourself to music so much?
That's a good question, and the answer is yes. I came out of the womb with a guitar,
Nice.
guitar in hand. So let's see. Actually, I started playing guitar when I was about 12. My initial musical influence was Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, wow.
I was really into Jimi Hendrix. I still am. Still like his music. And so I got really into Jimi Hendrix and other classic rock.
Dude, Jimi Hendrix is so incredible, and there's like a live concert live in Maui in Hawaii that just came out not that long ago, and I saw a video from it, and there's not that many people in the audience, and it was right before he died, and so it just made me think, like, he's so famous and so iconic, and yet at that time, maybe, I mean, for sure he was famous, but I think his fame has grown
Definitely.
since he died.
Definitely.
So.
Yeah, it's funny how that happens to some artists. I think it's pretty common to hear about that there was an artist that's really famous now that grew up poor because they weren't famous in their day.
Right.
Yeah, you definitely hear that from time to time. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. His fame, his fame outlived him quite much.
So influential, yeah. He's one of those artists that has had such a big impact that I think it's impossible for someone alive today to fully appreciate. Like, we can't know what that sounded like to people who are hearing it for the first time. Probably sounded like it was coming from outer space.
Yeah.
Because it was so different.
Yes.
But because it's been so influential, everyone's copied him.
Exactly.
So now it sounds so normal.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's very interesting, and I suppose that's sort of the name of the game with innovation. It's initially it's sort of groundbreaking, and people sort of push against it, I guess.
Right.
And then eventually it becomes more and more commonplace, and then it's just accepted as normal.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
So you got inspired by Hendrix and those guys?
Yep. Initially, I played electric guitar. First, and then eventually, I moved into percussive fingerstyle, which is the type of guitar that I play now, primarily, which is where you have an acoustic guitar and you use the body of the guitar to do percussive sounds as well.
Beautiful.
And you're doing all kinds of other things. I'll play a bunch of music today, and we'll get to hear what that sounds like.
Awesome, yeah.
But so there was one guitarist in the 1990s named Michael Hedges, and he's sort of considered to be the Jimi Hendrix of percussive fingerstyle.
Oh, cool.
He's sort of the person that foreran the style. And so, and he died in a car accident, I think, many years ago.
Say his name again?
Michael Hedges.
Okay, cool. Not familiar.
Yeah, he's a pretty niche player. I don't think many people have heard of him. But he spawned this whole style of guitar playing, just like Jimi Hendrix did with
cool.
with that style of guitar playing. So that's an interesting little bit of history.
Yeah, it's really, really unusual what you're doing with all the percussion, like almost like a one-man band.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that the part they do? Okay.
I like to think of it like that.
Cool.
Although I think a lot of one-man bands typically have like a lot of musical instruments, and some of them are just like lined with musical instruments and have like a kick drum at their feet or are doing crazy things. So it's not quite that outlandish, but it's definitely full enough to stand in its own right, which I think is why I like the style so much.
Cool. And did you studied classical music, right?
I did, yes. I studied classical music at CU Boulder.
Cool.
As soon as I got out of high school, I decided to do that. Just because I knew I wanted to do music, and the way to do that, like the way to study guitar was to study classical guitar, basically. I suppose I could have studied jazz, but I wasn't really into jazz at that point.
Interesting.
So yeah, I studied classical guitar at CU, and I suppose that was lucky because all classical guitar is fingerstyle, so I'm sure it helped build on this style.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's unusual too. Like I'm guessing that's more and more rare to study classical anything, like guitar and painting, and there's so much history there. Right?
Yes.
So you have a degree in music, basically.
I do. I have a degree in music. Yeah, Bachelor of Arts.
Cool. And then, are you? I mean, obviously, with the pandemic, you haven't been performing.
That is correct.
You've been mostly focusing on videos and recording.
Yes, and live stream to a much lesser extent. I actually just recently had a good live streaming experience.
Oh, nice.
And there were the most people on that ever had been, which I think was 8 during a live stream.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I think maybe there's some possibility during for live streaming.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly the virus has called into question this, has called the question of how does music proceed forward now? Because a lot of artists are in the same boat where, and I suppose performances are coming back now, you know, a whole year later after the initial outbreak. But still, to a large extent, a lot of artists have to ask where they're going to shift their focus and how they're going to make money differently.
Yeah, that's one of the most, I think, visible places where it's obviously had a massive impact. Like no concerts for a whole year. I'm seeing them start to come back, but you know, if that was your livelihood, like what did you do for the last year? And it's been interesting. I have friends in different parts of the country. Like, I mean, here in Colorado, it's been very limited. In Atlanta, Georgia, where my friend Tyler Cates, who made the theme song for the podcast, it's a great musician. It really wasn't, they didn't do much of a lockdown. They're not wearing masks. All the restaurants and bars have been open for months. And so he's been playing lots of gigs, and it's been kind of life back to normal for him.
That's so interesting.
Which is so, yeah, in Florida it's like that too. Yeah, so it's kind of, in Texas I think it's like that.
Yeah, I've heard about that in Texas.
And so, you know, but California is like kind of opposite end. So yeah, it's just interesting. The pandemic has been such a weird, interesting time. It's affected different people so differently. And one of the weird things for me to think about with the pandemic is like some people, like, it hasn't affected them. Their life is just the way it always has been, and like what's the big deal? And then other people, it's completely upended their whole reality.
Yes.
You know, we hear about like the grandparents who can't see their grandkids. Well, that's a reality for thousands or tens of thousands or millions of people. And then other people just don't even notice and are going about their life. So it's weird to think about.
It is very weird to think about, and all of those things are great points. It is such a strange thing that happened, and yeah, it was totally not an across the board like leveling of everything. Like for example, it was great to be Amazon during the pandemic because everyone started buying a lot more stuff online, a lot more than usual. It was great to be probably food delivery services.
Mm-hmm. Any of the tech jobs seem totally unaffected.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Like I have some people who come to me for therapy, and some of them are like complaining about being on Zoom all day online, but you know, their income has increased. They have more work than ever before, and they're in tech. And then someone else that I see like had a small business that was successful in Boulder and now is bankrupt. And so they're going through this massive bankruptcy process and having to move and sell all this stuff. And it's 100% because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
100%. And so it really drives home for me the impact that it's had and how different it has been.
Yes. I think probably it affected a lot of the smaller business owners to a larger extent. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of those people were in high water, I think.
Yeah, a lot of them still are.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But in terms of your life, I mean, you're still putting out music, and has there been a silver lining for you in the pandemic?
Yeah, I suppose so. I used all the spare time I had from the pandemic to do a lot more research into music marketing and all the other facets that go into being a musician that are not the music. Which I think when I was going to college, I didn't realize that being a musician means so much more than just being good at an instrument, which was pretty much all I focused on in college. Yeah. I just thought that if my music was good enough, then that was good enough. But it turns out you actually need a whole lot of other skill sets to be a successful musician. Yeah. And so I've been researching things like marketing and basically things like marketing, social media strategies, right, figuring out how YouTube works, you know, like to a very precise manner.
Yeah, that's interesting stuff. I noticed that with the podcast, you know, different ones will a bunch of people will watch one of them and then another one maybe less, and it's kind of mysterious, but I'm sure you could analyze it and try to understand it more. But all the social media stuff is like taken over our lives in a lot of ways.
Yes, it has. Yeah, that was something that I noticed too about halfway into this. I was just like, wow, social media is so much more prevalent than it used to be, which is alarming because it was very prevalent to begin with.
I think it's increased with the pandemic, obviously. Yeah. It's been a way to connect, and it's a many-faceted monster, you know, some good things about it and some downsides.
Yes. I agree.
But yeah, I think like everything you just said about being a musician could also kind of applies to being a therapist, which is interesting. There's probably a lot of other things like that out there where it's like just being a really skilled, good, knowledgeable psychotherapist doesn't translate into, getting as wide a reach as you can. So like marketing and the business side, and there's so much behind the scenes stuff and work and that goes into it that people don't see. So yeah, it's interesting.
Who would have thought? In this day and age, we have all this. It's freedom to some extent, but it requires that we wear a bunch of different caps.
It is freedom, and it's exactly right. So if you you can be a free individual and you can start your own business, and then all of a sudden you're doing everything.
Yeah.
Or you could work with a team or a bigger company and have different people kind of specializing in different roles. But yeah, if you're just an independent musician out there, I 100%, you got to be doing so many different things probably. And then the role of technology is so massive, which you know about. It's not just playing guitar, it's how do you record it and master it and edit it. And,
yes.
Same thing with video, right? So I've been really impressed with your videos because I think they're great. So
Thanks.
I know how much work goes into creating a video.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's funny to think about the audience or the consumer or whatever, seeing the final product, seeing a musician play a song and maybe they seem really relaxed and everything looks easy, and so much work has gone in behind the scenes to create that experience.
Yes.
And part of what people like is if they can, a sense of relaxation, making it look easy is part of what's enjoyable about it. So you don't really want people to see all the hard work that goes into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want it to be easy, look easy,
Absolutely.
Well, do you want to play something for us?
Sure. Yeah.
Give people an example.
Yes. So a quick note about this style of guitar, which again is called percussive fingerstyle. Usually the songs in this style are in different tunings. So this is what my guitar sounds like right now. This is a tuning that is a different tuning than what's called standard tuning, which is what most guitars are tuned to. So this happens to be Dad-Gad, which is one of the more common alternate tunings. So that's a really interesting thing, is the guitar is tuned differently to play this style of music typically.
So that's an open tuning?
This is an open tuning, cool. Yeah. Yes, indeed. And I think I'll play for you right now a song called A Different Wavelength, which is an original song.
Oh, nice.
Yes. It's dedicated to anyone who feels like a black sheep, or anyone who feels like an outlier, I guess.
Nice.
Anyone who's been pigeonholed by anyone else. Yeah, it's a song dedicated to people who don't fit in. Yeah.
Sounds good. you. Yeah, that's great.
Thanks.
And give people a sense of your unique style for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You can see you've got some like kind of gnarly fingernails there.
Yep. I grow the ones on this hand out. The ones on this hand are nice and short for the fretboard. So yeah, it's funny that they're opposite lengths, very short and very long. I put super glue on this one because I use artificial harmonics with it, which is this technique.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
There were some in that song, but because of that, there's always a lot of repeated pressure on this one, so I put super glue on it to help fortify it.
That's cool. Like with all our discussion of technology, I mean, this is just you and an acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. I think another reason I like this style so much is that you can have just one person with one guitar, no looping pedals, no effects, no anything else, and it just sounds like such a full spectrum of sound.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, yeah. Are you, so is this like your main style that you're doing?
It is, yes. Mm-hmm. I used to be more into electronic music, and I still like electronic music.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is where I've placed my focus, is this style of guitar.
Yeah, electronic music is kind of taking over the world.
Yeah.
I guess sometimes there can be a sense of it, I don't know what the word is, like being cheaper, if that makes sense, because it's made by, computer. It can be kind of almost automated at this point.
Yeah.
To some degree, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly just about anyone can pick it up.
Right.
So I think probably there's a lot of like sort of beginner electronic music out there. There's a lot of really well-made electronic music too, though.
Sure.
Or actually, maybe there's like a very small percentage of electronic music that's actually really good, and most of it is just kind of like meh, and then some of it is really bad. There are definitely some gems in the electronic music realm.
Yeah. What do you think about the whole thing of like DJs playing music versus like a live musical performance?
I think, depending on the occasion, there's certainly different feels. So, like for example, DJs are great at weddings because people have song requests and stuff, and I think there's sort of this association with like DJs and a party environment, where it's like if you go to a bar, there's a DJ. If you go to a house party, maybe there's a DJ. So, and I mean, you go to a music festival, electronic music festival, DJs.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah. So I think there's kind of this association with like DJs and partying.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, I mean, certainly there can be an association with live bands too and partying. But I think...
Yeah, but it's a little bit different. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think live music is a lot more expressive. Like, I believe when you have a really adept musician and they're playing their instrument, you can really feel their emotion come through the instrument. And then they really set up a vibe because that music is there. And I think ultimately it comes down to you have the person who's playing it, and the person who's playing it is emitting a frequency, but they're just translating it through music. So you can really, I would say live music is a lot more expressive than having a DJ, for example.
Right. There's a lot more room for variety for something, it's being created in that moment, literally. It's going to be something a little different. And there's a lot, potentially, you can appreciate the musicians more and really listen. I think that's becoming maybe less and less common.
Yes.
Oh, so the other thing that I realized in watching that old Jimi Hendrix concert footage, people were standing or sitting and really listening. They weren't talking, they weren't dancing around all crazy. And so it was kind of odd because, normally when we think of a concert now, like imagine Hendrix, you'd imagine people like going crazy and jumping up and down. And it wasn't like that. They were like really, you could tell they were really listening. And it's so cool to see that. And there was a certain it was just so interesting, like certain formality to it. And if you watch old concert footage, you can see that. And now when you go to, it depends on the concert and the kind of music, but generally speaking, it's more of like a social thing for a lot of people than an actually listening. Yeah.
I'd say there's a lot of truth to that.
And then a selfie that you put on your Instagram page and look where I was at kind of thing, rather than like actually listening to them. Yeah. What do you think about people's attention span? Like it seems like our collective attention span is getting shorter and shorter.
Yeah.
And when we bring it to music, it's like there's like, it's just, how short is it going to get? Like a minute? Or if you put on an old album from the 70s, they were like an hour long thing where that whole hour was like basically of a piece, you know,
Yeah.
a composition.
Absolutely.
And that's a lost art. I mean, I never see that, I rarely see that.
Yeah, that's a great point with, I think there's definitely a shortening attention span trend. And it's just trending towards zero.
Yeah.
Eventually we'll need like, like computer chips to help our attention spans eventually. Maybe that's the plan. But definitely then that also calls into the question of, what role does music play in this day and age?
Yeah.
And I think that role is likely going to get shaken up and changed quite a bit. Because if you look at music historically, I mean, I suppose music started out as a way to probably honor deities, and there was a lot more of like not religious, but religion didn't exist back then, but a lot more of a spiritual connotation with music.
Ritual, yeah.
And
Yeah, it's always been used in religion, spirituality, ritual.
yes.
I mean, some of the oldest I've read, and I guess it could be debated, but possibly the oldest human technology is drumming for going into trance states. I mean, that's as old as it gets.
Yes.
As human beings.
Yes. Which is incredible.
It's amazing, yeah, and it's still happening, you know, with indigenous people. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I think some version of that's happening with electronic music festivals. It's
Definitely.
inducing. It's obviously changing our state of being, our consciousness.
Yes.
The rhythm is the fundamental thing.
Yes. And so it started out like that and was a way to alter consciousness, was a way to interact with the non-physical. And then it sort of changed into an art form. And I think that was fine, because music as an art form is just fine. But I think we are heading back towards a more purposeful interaction with music,
Oh, that's cool.
one way or another. And
How do you see that? Like, what do you mean by that?
I think music will again be like it once was, where people are using music to create an altered state of consciousness.
Yeah.
Like maybe they're a group of people and they come together with the intent to use music to heal. And they can travel around, and they're known for using their music to heal and for helping people and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's this is very timely. So I just had on the podcast Ina and Howard from they created their own ministry, and they've been musicians for years, and their new album is coming out, and I play some of it in the podcast, and the whole album is it's about an hour, and it's intended for ceremony. It's intended to be ceremonial and evocative and atmospheric and rhythmic, and it's not really, none of the songs on there are 3-minute long pop songs with a verse and chorus. Like, it's not like that. And last night I actually led a cannabis circle here with a few people, something I've been exploring. I did a training around it called Psychedelic Sitter School, and a big part of it is music, and you're bringing in music, and it's kind of like just what you're describing. It's not 3-minute songs, and it's not even songs that have the normal structure, but they're kind of this continuous, music without interruption that is, bringing in different elements like cello, drumming, chanting. So it's very, I think the word evocative fits it, but like helping you to access your imagination, having a quality of being on a journey. It's very different than listening to
Your
pop
typical
music
pop song,
or hip hop, and those things are great, or even rock and roll. It's very different. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I would guess that is more towards what music is heading for. Because as people see the value of that more and more, I think that will be more and more in demand.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think music, it can obviously it kind of sets the mood or the tone. Like if you go to a restaurant and there's a certain, or a bar or a party or even the grocery store, like it's often there in the background, and often people don't notice it. But so my dad is a musician, and he always notices the background music, and we'll talk about it. Or like we'll go see, I remember as a kid going to see a movie in the movie theater back when that was a possibility. And then afterwards he was talking about like the musical, like he was really tuning into the way the music played into the story, which is often huge. Like something like Star Wars, you can really notice it if you want.
Yeah.
Where the music is a huge part of the experience, actually.
Yes. Yes.
It's interesting. It's fascinating.
But honestly, who knows where music is headed? I think it will be. It will eventually be a lot different than any of us can imagine. Probably more fantastic.
It's more and more cyborg, right? Like human technology, like that. Like Daft Punk makes me think about it. Like the human robot. Have you known that song?
Yeah.
It's like robots and humans, and I think that's the future that we're heading to. And I think there's going to be always an appreciation for actual musicians like yourself who can
Let's hope so.
perform and create that live and have that.
Uh-huh.
I think that won't ever be replaced, but I think that new forms will be developed with the technology as it continues to develop.
Yes, I agree. Another really interesting thing is artificial intelligence music, which exists now. I guess there are.
As well.
Yeah, there are different artificial intelligences making music, and I've listened to a lot of that actually. And the conclusion that I've come to is that you can feed a lot of different songs into an AI, for example, and it can compose music based on what it's heard, but it will never be able to step out of those boxes. AI, I don't think, will ever be able to create new music.
That's fascinating.
AI will only be able to replicate existing music. So I do think there will continue to be a demand for live musicians.
Yeah, I think so. That's so interesting about AI music. I was listening to something the other day about this author who came out with a book recently, and large sections of it are written by an AI. And I think he was saying something similar to what you're just saying. I mean, it is writing sentences, but they're based on the input that you've given it. Mm-hmm. And so that's interesting to think about. I would like to think there's something magical and unique about being alive, where something new comes through that a machine, no matter how advanced, can't do. I don't know if that'll change, but it seems like that. There's this famous experiment with like the kind of first looking at AI where they fed the system, whatever you want to call it, all this stuff from like YouTube and the internet and Google, and what it produced was a picture of a cat. Mm-hmm. Like that was like the most dominant thing on the internet. Like this was like 10 years ago. Like if you fed 10 years ago, if you fed this computer system everything on the internet, like cat pictures were like the number one thing that it would reproduce afterwards. It's like, oh, you guys like cats the most. Okay, here's a cat. Yeah.
That is totally not surprising.
It might be different now, but yeah.
It's probably like still pretty high cat.
Yeah, it's pretty high. There's a lot of pictures of cats and dogs on the internet. Yeah, so I mean, obviously, with what you're doing, the sense of rhythm is key.
Yeah, definitely.
Is that something that you've spent a lot of time developing or working on? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. I usually practice with a metronome. A metronome helps you keep a very steady tempo. So yeah, I consider a metronome essential in developing rhythm, and it's something that I do frequently.
That's that's a machine. Yeah. Interesting thing about rhythm and machines, because they can be so exact.
Yeah.
And a human is never, we're not a machine.
Uh-huh.
Do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, like the best drummers in the world, like that little bit of give and take is part of what makes them good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. And a good drummer can speed up or slow down their tempo. And that really will add or decrease the energy that a song has. So if you come to a really energetic part of the song and the drummer is speeding up in tempo, that's going to really raise the level of energy.
Yeah, cool.
And conversely, at the end of a song, maybe things are winding down. It's really going to decrease the energy. So yeah, those subtle nuances are really what the human element can bring to music, which is why I think people with instruments will continue to be a valuable thing, because there are aspects like that just can't be replicated.
Yeah, totally. It's exciting. It feels good to me to have like a positive kind of outlook on life when I can, and be excited about what the future will bring.
Yes.
I mean, it's always going to be kind of double-edged sword, I feel like.
Absolutely. But
it's cool that we get to live and see what happens.
What I've been noticing is that the world is getting both better and worse at the same time.
Yeah. That's what it seems like, right? Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Constantly getting better and worse, yeah. And then it's so relative what that even means, but hopefully we're not creating a catastrophic condition with climate change and all that kind of potential catastrophe.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the big fear that's hovering over us, that things seem like they're getting better in some ways, maybe worse in other ways, but this idea that behind the scenes, this tsunami is coming, that if we don't deal with it now, like, and pretend like everything's okay, it's going to come and crash on us and destroy us. And I guess we will, presumably live to find out at least part of that.
Yes.
That's true.
We will know.
Yeah.
Yes, we will find out. Yeah, everything hangs by a thread. And it's going to take some real genuine human ingenuity to turn things around. I think it is possible. I think we can do it. And I think the one factor in determining our success as a species is going to be how well we can cooperate and how well we can come together.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
There are a lot of conflicting narratives, especially right now, that tend to drive people apart, and that's definitely aiding climate change, aiding pollution and all of the world's problems.
Yeah.
And
can we come together and
it's my dream that music serves some role in that process of people coming more together.
I love that. Well, I think it absolutely does, and that's part of why I asked you to be on the podcast, and
yes.
why I've had other musicians, and I've talked about this before, but the largest, most peaceful gatherings I've ever been a part of were all around music. Like, it was music that was bringing people together. Like, I've been to, for example, the Folsom Field when the Dead performed, and it's like a giant football stadium with, I don't know what the numbers are, 20, 30,000 people, basically 100% peaceful. And people are there for like all day. I mean, it's just, like, how else do people come together so peacefully except around music?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe something like, I guess sporting events bring people together, but that has a very different feel to it.
Yeah.
There's two teams competing, there's a winner.
Exactly.
Music doesn't have that. Music is just something we're all enjoying.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think that, talking about rhythm and everything, our heartbeats sync up with each other. I really think it's pretty cosmic. There's a reason people go to festivals and concerts that is beyond just the typical reasons they might list. And I think that there's a sense of unity. There's a sense of like the collective energy. There's a, losing yourself, like getting out of your ego, connecting to something larger.
Yes.
All those elements, like that's where we can find them.
Yes.
That's what we need in the pandemic. That's what the pandemic has been so painful, because it's isolated us.
Yes.
And
absolutely
quarantined us and separated us, and that's hard. We're social creatures.
Absolutely. We are absolutely social. And the pandemic has caused this big contrast. And my hope would be that it's made people more aware of what they value. And perhaps people have decided that they do value live music and value just being in groups with people and having fun together. Maybe it's led to that realization. I don't know.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think that when we were talking about like climate change and needing to come together to work on things, I think one way that I could look at that and understand it that I think is helpful is like, and maybe it sounds obvious, but short-term gain versus long-term gain. And if you look at something like addictions, like someone who has an addiction issue, and you really like drill down, that's often a part of it. It's not gonna be the whole thing maybe, but like this substance or behavior or activity or thing or whatever it is that I'm addicted to in the moment feels good. That's why I'm doing it, right? Or it provides some relief from pain or whatever it's doing for you. But the long-term effect is getting worse and worse and worse. And so I really think that our society, we're addicted to consumerism, to
a lot of different
money,
things,
to fame, and all
our phones, so many different things.
And they provide this short-term gratification, and then the long-term effects are not good. And it's weird that we're so, generally speaking, so many people are so unhappy despite all the comfort, material comfort, despite the fact that you have access to more choices around food than the King of France did 500 years ago.
Yeah.
You have air conditioning that the King of France didn't have. You, in so many ways, like a poor person in America today is objectively way better off than anyone else in human history, and yet they're so miserable. We're so miserable.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point.
Yeah, it's fascinating to think about. I think about this a lot. It's bizarre.
The average person nowadays is as well off as the King of France was, if not better.
The King of France didn't have the iPhone, but it doesn't seem to like. I think part
it
of that
doesn't seem to help.
Doesn't help our genuine like underlying happiness. I think part of it is we're not just social creatures. We're hierarchical. We put each other in these kinds of hierarchies. And some people want to pretend like that's not true, but I think that's just true. And so then we're always comparing ourselves to other people, and even if you have all your needs taken care of and you're comfortable and you have food in your fridge and you have a car and everything, you don't think of yourself as wealthy compared to the, richer people.
That's very true.
And that comparison is the thief of happiness. It's hard to feel satisfied and content then.
Yeah.
Even though, objectively speaking, like, you don't need all that other shit. Like, you're fine how you are. Mm-hmm. It's hard to feel that on a, deep level.
Yeah, absolutely. It absolutely is. And that brings into question basically the entire like economic structure of the world, which is basically just to make profits.
Yeah.
To make things that you can sell so that you can make profits, so that you can make more things to sell, which I guess is consumerism. That really brings into question the whole narrative of consumerism and is it really creating lasting happiness? And I think we just sort of discussed how it isn't.
It's not really. It's really not. But you, as a musician, whether you want to be or not, you're in this world, and you have to. If you want to make money as a musician, you want to be able to support yourself.
Yes. You
have to play that game to some degree, right?
Exactly. And I mean, every single person in this world is in the same position. And so, yeah, it's very interesting.
So when I was a kid growing up, like in the 90s, like I guess I'll date myself here, like bands like Nirvana and all that stuff, I just remember like they had this anti-mainstream, anti-capitalist kind of stance.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was a kid, like it wasn't cool to be on the MTV always, like it was, if that makes sense, like it was like there was like this countercultural element to it that seems like I don't know if that even, I mean, I guess that still exists for some artists and musicians for sure, but in general it just seems like most people have just totally forgotten that, and it's just all about the fame and the money.
Yeah, that is a good point.
You must feel those pressures in yourself, right?
The pressures of either being with the narrative or being against the narrative, basically.
Yeah, or like I guess like this thing around like creating art for art's sake versus things that will appeal to more people that can be profitable.
Indeed. Yeah, that is a huge topic that I've run into. And actually, last year, my plan was to do a lot of different covers to try and appeal to some different, audiences of people, try and tap into some fan bases. And I mean, basically my idea with that was that if I shift my strategy a little bit, maybe I can reach more people. And I mean, so far that hasn't really been the case, but I'm still working the music puzzle together.
Yeah. So you're covering some songs, and you ran into some censorship issues with YouTube, right? Do you want to speak to that?
I did recently, yes.
What happened? What's the story there? Because I saw you post about it.
Yeah. This is an interesting story. So I made a video of me playing Hotel California. It's a really cool video. I'm playing two guitars in the video at the same time.
Nice.
And so I just had this idea that it was going to be Hotel California. Didn't really think much of it. I'd made the arrangement, practiced it, recorded the video, and then got it on YouTube.
So how much time is all that? Like, is it like days, weeks?
Yeah, each one of those processes that I just mentioned is probably hours and hours.
Yeah.
Like, for example, for the specific video, I got body art done. And just the body art alone took 3 hours to do.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And, cost about $220 to do the body art. So the body art took 3 hours. And then, I mean, if we're talking about...
Like practicing the song. And
practicing the song, that took many, many hours. At least 20 in total. Oh. At least 20 hours to make the arrangement for that song and practice it. And then another full day for it to shoot the video.
Wow, yeah. So a lot of work went into this.
Yeah, like you were saying, a finished music video has a lot of stuff behind it. But anyway, so made this video, was super happy with it. I think it was the coolest video I had put out up to that point, and I really tried to make it that way. I hired a professional videographer to film me, which I hadn't been doing to that point. I'd been filming myself and editing my videos myself to save money, because that doesn't cost anything. But I really wanted to put my effort into this video, so I did. And got it on YouTube, and the initial reaction was great. I was running some Facebook ads for it too, and with that I was able to get about 200,000 views on the video.
200,000, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So you went all in on this. You're like, this is going to be it. Like, put money into it, time, everything.
Yep. Into this specific video. And then so it was on YouTube for about 2 weeks. And then one day I got a text from my mom saying that YouTube had removed the video, and I went and checked, and they had. And basically what had happened was the record company, and I forget what they're called. It's four letters, but I forget exactly what they are. Huh. But the record label that has the Eagles, that owns Hotel California, they're really adamant about searching for all the covers of Hotel California on YouTube and taking them down, basically. Because for whatever reason, they want exclusive rights to Hotel California.
That's interesting. Because a lot of times I've put stuff on YouTube and it's got them flagged, and then YouTube just sent me a message like, you cannot monetize this video.
Exactly.
And I say, okay, I'm not going to monetize it, and the video is still up. So in your case, they took it down.
They took it down.
That's terrible.
And actually, I have a lot of other cover songs on my YouTube channel that have gotten notifications like that. And I thought, if anything, that was what was going to happen to the Hotel California video.
Jeez.
And I don't even have my YouTube video monetized.
Yeah.
My YouTube channel is not monetized. I don't have enough subscribers for that. And I probably would never do that anyway, because you literally need to have millions of subscribers to be making a couple $100 a month on YouTube. So it's kind of abysmal on YouTube. But I was thinking that if it was going to happen, I would probably just get the video flagged, and then worst case scenario, I wouldn't be able to monetize it. Mm-hmm. But it turns out that for whatever reason, this record label is really adamant about removing all of the Hotel Californias. And I guess they have a team that goes out and do this. So they took the video down, and
it's terrible. So one of the issues here is, at what point does a cover become so different from the original that it's its own creation that deserves to be seen as its own thing? Right? Because you're not copying it note for note, right? You're not recreating the exact same song.
Exactly.
You're creating your version.
Exactly. Which is quite different than the original. I mean, the version that I made for guitar, it's in a different key than the original. It's in a different tempo. Oh. It's different in that it's just two guitars. It's a 2-guitar version of the song, when the original song had a whole band that was making that song. So
it's totally different.
That's an absolutely valid point. Is it really a cover if it's so different that maybe people wouldn't be able to recognize it? Mm-hmm. It's a really good point.
Yeah. And like you said, you spend a lot of time composing it and how you're going to create it. And well, let's. Do you want to play it for people?
Sure.
All right, let's do it.
So the concept with the body art is that half of me is supposed to be an angel and half of me is supposed to be a demon. And I feel like that's what we really go through as a human, is I don't know exactly how to explain it, but
it's an amazing body art.
Thank you. It seems like within each of us, there's the potential for good and there's the potential for evil as well. Mm. And I suppose that's what the body art represents. I also like the idea that the one hand was playing the one guitar and the other hand was playing the other guitar.
That's cool.
Something about that.
Well, there's so much symbols in there. The sun and the right.
Yeah.
And then the left is more feminine traditionally.
Yeah, and there's a moon on my left shoulder, which you can't see. There's also something interesting about those two opposing forces coming together to create music in this example, which I think is how a lot of things work. Opposite energies combining.
Yeah. Nice.
Big climactic moment.
Yeah, I love this idea of integrating the two different energies within us.
Yes.
The dark, the light, the masculine, the feminine.
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely the idea.
That's a cool shot.
I had a outfit custom made for me for this video. You'll notice that I've got a vest and pants on. One half is black, one half is white. I had to have that custom sewn together by a seamstress that lives in Golden. So I had the outfit custom made for me.
Wow. Yeah, when I hear about everything that went into this video, it really pisses me off that it got banned.
Yeah, I was super angry when it initially happened. I've since recovered from it, I think, and have seen the silver lining in this one too.
Oh yeah, what is the silver lining?
I think ultimately it's that, sometimes just strange things happen, and you can't even necessarily prepare for them. I think that was the main lesson for me. Because there was also some part of me that was like, oh, why did I choose... If I had chosen any song other than Hotel California to do this with...
Well, you didn't know.
Yeah, exactly. And
How
so...
would you know? Yeah, I guess you could have researched it, but...
So there's a bit of, like, forgiving oneself and just kind of accepting that sometimes things are out of your reach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you can accept that and stay positive, that's a victory in itself. And
very true.
there can always be a silver lining. You can always reframe, re-understand things to... see them more positively or more negatively. There's a lot of power in that. But that was gorgeous, and I think I'll include that at the end of the podcast without us talking, just in case anyone wants to watch it.
Okay.
See if we get by the YouTube censors.
Yeah, I think you will.
Yeah.
I think you will. We were talking earlier about how there's definitely like softwares, bots that scrub YouTube videos looking for waveforms. And as long as the waveform is different than the original song, then they usually don't get recognized. And so if you've ever seen a YouTube video with a famous song in the background and that song either sounds pitched up or pitched down, that's why that is because if you can change a song's pitch, then the algorithms that are looking for it won't be able to recognize it.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, you've obviously done more than, changing the pitch like electronically or whatever. You've created a new
exactly.
Thing.
It's an entire new piece, basically.
It's beautiful. And, it is recognizable. Like, I recognize the original in there, but
yes,
it's totally different at the same time. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, these music companies have bad reputations for a reason.
Yeah.
I guess that's just their choice. If you own the rights, you could choose to do that, or you could choose to leave it up.
Yeah.
Because if you leave it up, it gets your song more exposure. Maybe it drives someone to listen to the original.
Exactly.
So it could be a net benefit for them. So it's kind of funny they go around doing that.
I think in this case it's just a preference on the part of the Eagles, on the part of their record label, that they just really want Hotel California on lockdown. But yeah, it's at other people's detriment.
Interesting idea of ownership,
Yes.
You can kind of deconstruct that if you want, and there's a place for it to some degree. Isn't there a law, like, after a certain number of years it becomes public domain?
That is a law, yeah.
So how old is that song?
I don't know, but I think that is at least 100 years.
Okay.
So, like, all the classical music is now public domain. But
I know that it's 100 years for artwork, like paintings.
Okay.
Because I have a friend, Dr. Love, who was on the podcast. He's been creating these high-quality prints of old artwork, and he'd sell them. And if it's over 100 years old, it's public domain. Anyone can take that image. But if it's less than that, then the artist's rights are there, and you can't do that.
Yeah.
So, interesting. Well, this has been great having you on the podcast.
Yeah, this has been really enjoyable. Thank you for having me. Would you like to hear a last song?
Sure, please.
And we'll close it out.
Yeah, that'd be great.
This is going to be another... So Hotel California was definitely an exclusive video, because that one doesn't exist anymore, so... that's a very like very Easter egg kind of a thing to present on the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I'll put the full video at the end of the episode if you want to watch it. Yeah.
So that was surprise number 1. Surprise number 2 is that I'm gonna play now a song that I haven't released yet, and so it's gonna be like a sneak peek for anyone who's seeing this podcast, which is really cool. So this song is called "Sands of Time," and you'll hear that you will hear that it sounds very Middle Eastern, very Arabic, and I'm going to shoot the music video for this one soon, and my idea is to dress up like a genie and just go all in on the 1001 Arabian Nights idea.
Oh, cool.
And just try and draw from that and see how that comes together. So yeah, anyway, this is a sneak peek, and this is Sands of Time. Thank you.
Love that.
Yep, so that's an upcoming original.
Sands of Time.
Sands of Time.
Beautiful.
Yep. That one's not even out yet.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
You're welcome. I have a YouTube channel. I have a Spotify. I'm on any place that music is streamed. You can find me on Apple Music. Just search for Derek Demuth. That's where you can find me anywhere. If you like my music, that's where you can find it.
Sweet, man.
And I'm also pretty active on Instagram, so you can follow me on Instagram if you want to talk to me directly.
Cool. Yeah, I'll link all that on the show notes for people.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Great. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, you're welcome, Julian. Thank you.